questions or comments tonight?
Mayor Lundgren, this is an excellent show. This gentleman, Mr. Bennett, seems like he's very well informed and knowledgeable on these issues. I've also seen the show of Mr. Markey. There's a lot of educational issues. And I think Mr. Bennett should be on that show, too, because, wow, your guest is well informed. One question I have is I heard you just talk about the principals and the teacher relationship. What I found watching Mr. Markey's show and other shows is that often the principals seem to be more of the political nature. They're political appointees, and I often question actually their ability, and I'm wondering if that's the most effective way for teachers to be evaluated on competency by the principals, because the principals often, I'm not quite so sure that they actually know what they're doing and actually are the best judges of the teachers. It seems like it could be very, if a principal doesn't like the political nature of a teacher or the teaching method of teachers, they would have tremendous power and ability to retaliate against that teacher. And I'm concerned about what's going on if that's the way the system's working now.
Okay. Now that's an interesting question, because that sort of brings in some of the questions about the teacher tenure statute that we have here in Minnesota, and kind of the process that if a teacher is evaluated to a point where they're recommending to be dismissed, it does have to go to the school board. And does the school board just rubber stamp what has gone before them, or do they take a fresh look at it? That's a good question.
Well, it seems to be pretty standardized. They want everybody to do everything, to the point where we would go into one second grade class and they were doing reading. And as we walked across the hall to the other second grade class, he'll go, they will be just finishing reading as we get there. So everything is very standardized. They really push all the teachers to do everything at the same time in the same manner. And I don't think it's an issue. And at least in the north end of the district where I am, pretty much all the principals are brand new. In the last 5 years, I would guess that more than half our principals have been replaced. And the principals, I met with the principal at Castle, I met with the principal at Harmony Alternative Learning Center, which is a fascinating school. Richardson, the principal from Cowern is 2 years, I think. So we've got a lot of new principals, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the rules have changed. No Child Left Behind is here. We're going to be data-driven. We're not going to do what we did 10 years ago. And I think it's a really good thing.
Well, and I think one of the things, too, is that now how does this No Child Left Behind, is that similar or different from, I think I've heard some other new program that's coming from the national level as well.
Well, the big thing that when you hear about No Child Left Behind is you'll hear AYP, annual, or the yearly progress that they're making. Are they making adequate yearly progress?
Okay.
And that's part of the No Child Left Behind. That's how they measure whether a school is really performing. And we had one school that was not performing well. We changed the principal. We got the ball rolling, but we still didn't make it. And there's a lot of pressure. And now this last year they came off of AYP. But you have to be off for 2 years before you're really off.
Oh, I see. I see.
But
well, and of course, in Minnesota here, we have various state standards that, of course, have to be met within the educational system. But I think, certainly, I think that a lot of people see that a principal at the school is, well, the leader of that school. They're the ones who have to make sure that everything moves along efficiently, but I think they also set the tone as well and the environment, don't they?
It's very definitely the principals in charge of the schools. The district is giving him feedback, but the principals are really hustling. The principals that I've seen are really hustling. They really are all hyped up and positive energy. It's very good, the stuff that I've seen in the school.
That's great. Now, do the principals as a group of the leaders of the various schools, do they meet at all on a regular basis with the school board members?
I don't know if they meet with the school board. They meet with Patty Phillips. You know, it's much like Maplewood, where the board hires Patty, and Patty's responsible for everything below her.
Okay.
So she's pretty much in charge, and she has, I call it management by wandering around. She calls it roaming. She's out there, and I don't know how many days a week she's out there, but she's out there hitting this school in the morning, that school in the afternoon. She's no slouch. She's out there, and everybody knows her.
So that's what I'm hearing you say. She's hands-on. She's not just sitting in her office thumbing through the papers. She's actually out there in the field checking on what's really going on.
You bet. She sees the data, and she's out there actually seeing that data matches what's really happening.
Wow, that's great. Now, I understand we have another caller on the line. See, this is a hot topic. Caller, thank you for calling in. Questions or comments for us this evening?
The one comment I had is that program I'm reading about in the paper all the time is called Bringing Race to the Top, I think.
Okay. Good, because...
and I don't understand what that actually is.
Okay, very good. Good question. Thanks, caller.
Well, Race to the Top was a federal funding that we had as a state we could have applied for. And in our district, administration, and they weren't given much time. They were given like 2 weeks. Administration said, let's go for it. It was, I think, about $3 million it would have meant to our district. The union had a different opinion on it, and the whole thing fell apart. We didn't get any of the money.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I guess that helps answer that question. Now, when you've been out and about speaking with citizens about your candidacy for the school board, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing from citizens out there?
Well, I think the citizens that I talk to are all pretty much ignorant about what's going on in the schools. They don't get talked to. The only thing that, of course, they're waiting for is, when are they going to come looking for more money?
Okay.
But that's an easily answered thing. There was a cable show a little while ago, Washington County People of Power, and Kathy Miller from our school board, who was the chair of the school board for a while, was on there, and they were saying, in this economy, what has your entity done to, reduce costs or whatever? And she goes, well, we had set our maximum levy like we always do, and then people came in and testified, and we reduced our levy. We listened to the people, we reduced our levy. And I thought, oh, that's really great, except within a few months, they levied $30 million to meet they couldn't meet their contract payroll. They had to levy $30 million just to cover retiree benefits.
Wow.
That's enough.
That's incredible.
We have a school called Skyview, which is elementary and middle school. That only cost us $22 million for. So we could have another whole middle school for the amount of money they levied.
Wow.
And it only affects about roughly 350 retirees.
That's, you start thinking about the cash outlay for the benefit with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're already tired. They're gone.
Oh, my goodness. So now the thing is that it sounds like then, so if you're out there talking to citizens and they're really the main thing that they haven't really heard a lot from the school district or from their school board members that were on there, and they really, they're thirsting for knowledge, it sounds like. So what are some of the ideas that you have that when you're elected, how you're going to change that?
Well, years ago, we had what was called the forum before every school board meeting, and it was a half hour, and if that was too little time, then the next month it was longer. The school board just dropped it. They weren't interested in talking to the people, and they make it one of their top 4 priorities almost every year, and yet they do nothing. We do have what's called a coffee and conversation with the superintendent, and it's at the end of the month, the 28th, at the district center at 6:30. If anybody wants to come, you're all welcome to come. And it's a nice town hall meeting, but the trouble is it's usually held at one of the schools, and the only people who show up are, well, you see Robert Martin, who's also running for the board. You'll see Jerry Markey sometimes. You'll see a couple people from the PTA, the principal, and the superintendent.
Right.
But it's usually less than 15 people total.
Right.
And it's very disappointing. And at the school board meetings, if you watch them pan out, at the school board meeting, there's usually a group that's being recognized or something in the first 5 minutes. And then after that, it's Jerry Markey and me and it's pretty empty after that.
Wow, wow. So what I'm hearing you say is that you would actually like to have more citizen outreach, more opportunity to actually engage with the citizens of the district to hear what they have to say, or to at least to even give them more information so they actually have an idea what kind of questions to ask.
It would be great if they were able to communicate more. At Richardson Elementary, where I was the other day, the principal was late to our meeting because he has a monthly coffee and conversation with the parents of the kids in his school. Now, he didn't get a big turnout. He said he had like 7 or 8 people. But at least it's something. I would like to see a little more outreach, not only to the parents of the children there, but to the surrounding community to get them into the school. One of the ideas we talked about is if you go to a Ramsey County Library now or a Washington County Library, everybody's unemployed. If they can't afford their own cable, they're at the library applying for jobs and searching for jobs online, but the computers are all full. And you walk into the schools, all kinds of computers, and they're turned off. They're sitting there all night long. So, one of the things that we talked about earlier this week was, why don't we work with the Ramsey County Library System or the Washington County Library System to have maybe they could staff our media center to get the media, get those computers working at night, say 6 to 9 or something like that.
And that's actually a very innovative way of using our community resources that we already have that are not being utilized, and utilizing them in a way that is a positive, positive for our community.
The other thing I really like about it is, since Columbine, everyone's afraid to walk into school. They've got people there, you have to sign in, and they really give you the impression they don't want you in the building. Although
it's not very welcoming.
It's not very welcoming. But if you had something like this where you get the people into the library and they see the gymnasium, maybe they're in the library and they can have their kids in the gym, which is right at Richardson. They're right next door to each other. You get used to going into the school. The adults get used to going in the school, and it would open up some communications.
I think those are some good ideas. Now, I understand we have another caller on the line. Caller, thank you for calling in. Questions or comments this evening?
I got a comment.
Okay.
I got a comment, Diane. I'm just curious how inefficient the school system was previously when they discarded $17 million worth of debt because it was necessary of the economy. And I am curious how many more directors, assistant directors, director of achievements, they have administration people that you can't believe. They have a bureaucracy all of their own that's worse than the state. Diane, are you aware that when they retire, they don't even pay for their health insurance?
Oh, my goodness.
And you wonder why the school system is so goofed up? This goofball Richardson they had on there made this statement. He says, years ago, I'm talking now, I'm 90 years old.
Oh, you sound like you're 65.
I tell you what, Diane, years ago we had 45 kids in our classroom with one teacher, and there was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade she taught.
Wow.
Yes, and we knew how to add, we knew how to subtract. Today these kids can't even add 2 and 2 unless they got a computer. The system is so goofed up. This tenure has goofed up the whole school system. They got people in there that they're go and watch the movie Waiting for a Superman. How they're passing these teachers around because they're lemons from one school district to another just so they stay in the system and get the money. It is the biggest bureaucracy since the doggone welfare system. That's all I had to say.
Well, I want to thank you for calling in. You've brought up a couple of really great points that I think are really going to give us a lot to talk about here, which is great. And I want to share one little thing, is that when I was a little girl, and now of course I'm sure you won't even believe this, But when I was a little girl, from 1st to 3rd grade, I was